The room exploded with applause. Ah. And that was the moment Ethan Walker realized his life had quietly split in two. Just 5 minutes earlier, he had been invisible standing near the back wall of a sleek San Francisco conference room. Badge flipped backward, hoodie zipped halfway up like he didn't belong. Now the clapping felt loud, sharp, almost painful, because the man accepting the praise was not the one who deserved it. Marcus Hale, his boss, stood at the front, confident and polished, arms open like a man welcoming destiny. Behind him, a massive screen glowed with a product that had been born in Ethan's tiny apartment, built during sleepless nights, coated with shaking hands and stubborn hope. This, Marcus said proudly, is the future of intelligent workflow systems. Ethan didn't breathe. The logo filled the screen, clean, minimal. Perfect. Ethan had designed it on a night when the rain wouldn't stop hitting his window, and he wondered if dreams were supposed to feel this lonely. He had never shown that logo to anyone except Marcus, and now Marcus was calling it his own. 3 months earlier, Ethan had believed in him. He remembered the first time Marcus invited him into his office. The city skyline had stretched behind the glass, and Marcus had leaned back, smiling like a man who understood ambition. "You've got talent," Marcus had said. "If you have ideas, bring them to me. I'll help you grow." That promise had felt real. It had felt safe. So Ethan had shared everything. The concept, the architecture, even the name. Now, as investors nodded and phones lifted to record, Ethan felt something inside him go still. Not rage, not panic. Just a heavy, quiet heartbreak, the kind that doesn't scream, but settles deep in the chest. Marcus clicked through slides, explaining features Ethan had built line by line after work. Adaptive scheduling, predictive task flow, a system designed not just to manage time, but to understand people. Ethan had poured his empathy into the code. Shaped by years of watching coworkers burn out and give up, he had wanted to fix something real. The room loved it. Impressive. Someone whispered. Ethan's fingers tightened around his paper cup. The coffee was cold, bitter, forgotten. Then he felt it, a presence across the room. Lena Brooks stood near the side table, her arms folded, her attention fixed not on Marcus, but on the screen. She was the product designer, thoughtful and sharp, the kind of person who noticed details others skipped. She had stayed late with Ethan more than once, quietly encouraging him, asking questions that made the idea better. She wasn't clapping. Her eyes moved from the screen to Marcus, then slowly found Ethan. Their eyes met. In that second, Ethan felt exposed, like someone had pulled the truth out of him without words. Lena didn't look surprised. She looked like she had been waiting for confirmation. The applause faded. Marcus cleared his throat. "Let's show them what it can really do." The lights dimmed. A live demo. Ethan's pulse jumped, not with fear, but with a strange, calm certainty. Marcus had stolen the idea, the pitch, the spotlight, but he hadn't stolen everything. As the demo loaded, Ethan's mind drifted back to the nights he had coded alone, to the quiet hum of his laptop, to the decision he had made one night after Marcus casually asked him to email the latest build. Ethan had hesitated. Trust was fragile. He had learned that growing up, watching his father lose a small business to a partner who smiled too much. That memory had stayed with him, shaping how he wrote code, how he guarded his work. So Ethan had built a layer no one noticed. Not a trap, not a weapon, a truth. The demo unfolded smoothly. The software responded quickly, elegantly. Marcus narrated confidently, clicking through features as if they were memories he owned. The investors leaned in. Ethan watched quietly. His back straight now, his breathing steady. This was no longer about exposure. It was about letting things happen as they were meant to. Lena glanced at him again. This time her expression softened, almost encouraging. Marcus reached the final step. "And here," he said, smiling, "is where the system adapts to the user." He clicked off the screen, paused. Just for a moment. The room stilled. Marcus laughed lightly. "Looks like a delay," he said, adjusting his grip on the mouse. Ethan felt the silence stretch. Then the screen changed. Gone were the charts and visuals. In their place appeared a simple line of text, centered.com. It's impossible to ignore. Every great system remembers who built it, eh? Ripple moved through the room. Marcus's smile froze. He clicked again. Nothing happened. The text faded, replaced by a clean interface one. Ethan knew better than his own reflection. A timeline appeared, showing the project's growth. Dates, versions, notes written in plain language. Full of care. And then, at the bottom, a name appeared. Developed by Ethan Walker, no accusation. No drama, just truth. Ethan didn't move. Marcus stared at the screen, his face draining of color. This must be a mistake, he said quickly, glancing back at the audience. A developer tag. We'll remove it. But the room had already changed. Whispers broke out. Confused looks passed between investors. One woman in the front row leaned forward, narrowing her eyes as she read the screen again. Marcus, she said calmly, can you explain why your name isn't there? Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was heavy. Ethan stepped forward, not rushed, not dramatic, just present. I built the system, he said, his voice steady. I shared it with Marcus because I trusted him. No insults. No raised voice. Just honesty. Lena exhaled softly, as if she had been holding her breath the entire night. Marcus tried to speak again, but the moment had already passed. The room no longer belonged to him. As conversations broke into clusters and the meeting dissolved into quiet tension, Ethan walked toward the glass doors leading to the balcony. He needed airspace, something real. The city lights stretched endlessly outside, glowing against the dark sky. For the first time that night, Ethan felt tall. Footsteps approached. Lena stood beside him, hands resting on the railing. You knew, she said quietly. Not a question. I hoped I was wrong, Ethan replied. But I prepared. Nodded slowly. I'm glad you did. They stood in silence, the noise of the city filling the space between them. There was so much they hadn't said about the long nights, the shared looks, the feeling that something deeper had been growing quietly beneath the surface. Ethan looked at her then, really looked on. For the first time since the applause started, his heart didn't ache. It opened. The silence after the reveal was louder than the applause had ever been. Ethan Walker felt it pressing against his ears as he stood near the balcony doors. The city lights of San Francisco blinking below like they were watching everything unfold. Inside the conference room, voices rose in short, tense bursts. No shouting. No chaos. Just confusion, controlled, professional. And sharp. That was when Ethan knew the truth had landed. Marcus Hale stood frozen near the screen, his confident posture gone. The man who had once owned every room now looked small, like someone who had stepped into the wrong story and lost the script. Investors whispered to each other, eyes moving between the screen and Ethan, trying to connect the dots. One of them, a tall man with silver hair, finally spoke. Ethan, he said, calm but firm, would you mind explaining what we're seeing? Ethan turned slowly. His heart beat fast, but his voice stayed steady. The demo version runs differently when it's presented without the creator's credentials, he said. It doesn't stop the system. It simply shows the history. Marcus cleared his throat. This is a misunderstanding, he said quickly. Ethan worked on the team. Of course, his name appears somewhere in the back end. Ethan didn't react. He didn't need to. The screen shifted again on its own. No buttons, no clicks. Just another layer appearing, commit notes, timestamps, lines of code written late at night. Each one signed. Each one dated. A woman near the front leaned closer. These notes are personal, she said. They read like one voice. They are, Ethan replied. Mine. The room changed again, not with noise, but with clarity. Marcus stepped back, palms open. Ethan, we can talk about this privately. Ethan shook his head. I tried that already. No anger. Just a line drawn cleanly in the air. The meeting ended shortly after. Not officially, not announced. People simply stood, gathered their things, and left in thoughtful silence. Business cards stayed in pockets. Promises stayed unspoken. Marcus didn't follow. Ethan stepped out onto the balcony, breathing in the cool night air. His hands rested on the railing, steady now. He didn't feel victorious. He felt free. Moments later, Lena Brooks joined him. "I was hoping you'd come out here," she said softly. Ethan smiled. "I needed the quiet." They stood side by side, city noise rising from below. Cars moved like veins of light through the streets. Somewhere far away, music drifted through the night. "You planned that demo," Lena said. "Didn't you?" "I planned for honesty," Ethan replied. "That's all." She studied him for a second, then nodded. "That's why it worked. We didn't talk about Marcus." They didn't need to. The story had already closed itself. What happens now? Lena asked. Ethan looked out at the skyline. "Now I start over," he said. "But this time, on my terms." She smiled at that. A real smile. Warm. Certain days passed quickly after that night. Emails arrived. Some from investors asking questions. Others from people Ethan had never met, curious about the software and the man behind it. Marcus sent one message, a short apology, carefully written. Empty of responsibility. Ethan didn't reply. Instead, he focused on rebuilding. He rented a small workspace near the waterfront. Simple desk, big window, quiet mornings. He refined the software, cleaned the code, and made it stronger. Not just smarter, but kinder to the people who would use it. Lena visited often. At first, it was work, design discussions, user flow, coffee breaks that stretched a little too long. Then it became something else. Shared lunches, late evenings, laughter filling the empty space between tasks. One night, as rain tapped against the window, Lena leaned back in her chair. "You know," she said, "I almost left the company before all this." Ethan looked up. "Why didn't you?" She met his eyes. "Because I believed in the idea and the person behind it." The room went quiet. Ethan felt that familiar pull in his chest, the one he had ignored for months. Not because it wasn't there, but because timing had been wrong. Power, risk, fear. Now those walls were gone. "I'm glad you stayed," he said. "So am I," she replied. The product launch came quietly. No big stage. No dramatic pitch. Just a clean website, a clear story, and a product that worked the way people needed it to. Word spread slowly, then faster. Small teams signed up. Then bigger ones. The software didn't promise miracles. It promised balance. That honesty resonated. One evening, after a long day, Ethan and Lena walked along the pier. The air smelled of salt and city lights reflected across the water. They stopped near the edge, leaning against the railing. "Do you ever miss it?" Lena asked. "The old job. The safety." Ethan thought for a moment. "I miss who I thought I was becoming there," he said. "But I like who I am now more." She smiled. "Me too." They stood close, shoulders nearly touching. No rush, no pressure. Just a quiet understanding that something real had grown between them, not from drama, but from trust. Weeks later, an email arrived from a venture firm in Vancouver. They had seen the demo footage circulating online. They wanted a meeting. Ethan smiled as he read it. Not because of the money, because of the journey at the meeting. He stood alone at the front of the room. No borrowed words. No hidden layers. Just truth. "This product was built to respect people's time," he said, "including mine." They invested. That night, Ethan and Lena celebrated with takeout and cheap wine on the office floor. The city hummed outside, alive and open. "You did it," Lena said, raising her glass. "We did," Ethan corrected. She laughed. "I was hoping you'd say that." Later, as the lights dimmed and the world slowed, Ethan looked around the room, the screens, the notes. The quiet promise of tomorrow. His idea had been stolen once, but it had returned stronger, shaped by loss, protected by truth, and guided by someone who believed in him when it mattered most. And this time, No one could take it away.